Hey brothers and sisters, and welcome back to Jam, aka Just a Messenger Ministry. Honestly, this is a heavy subject. So before we get started, I just want to say, if you haven't already, subscribe, like the video, hit the bell so you can find it when you need it most. Jesus wept. So here we are in the flesh, natural, no makeup, just you and I. So let us shed a few tears, and if we must, let us weep. Throughout this week, I've been led to put out verses about war, loss, and memories. From Numbers 10:9, of going to war and being oppressed and being saved by God in the end. Deuteronomy 20, verse 1, when thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots, a people more than thou, be not afraid of them, for the Lord thy God is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Just as the Israelites then, we face at times overwhelming opposition, like grief. The feelings of helplessness and being outnumbered can sneak up faster than we can imagine. God ends this verse with the reminder that he delivered them out of the land of Egypt, to remind them and to remind us today that if he was there then he will be here now. He can conquer all, and with him so can we. We go from there to Job 5:20, in famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. There is another quote, anonymous, so I can't give credit where it is in fact due. The pain you feel today is the strength you feel tomorrow. It can be applied here. Pain can help us grow, and God sure does use it, doesn't he? We can all attest to that, and it's good to remember when we face loss, especially in huge magnitudes. Job didn't understand why he suffered. He was at a loss, and however he remained faithful to God and had a chance to grow. We also need to remember that just because we follow God and have a close relationship with Jesus, that we will not face hardship, we will somehow bound for more prosperity. The enemy's plot is just that, to get you to doubt who God is and your faith in him to waver. The last two posts have been about Psalms 77:11 through 14. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. I will meditate also of all thy work, and talk of thy doings. Thy way, O God, is the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? Thou art the God that doest wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength among the people. When I was led to this, and through this, I was so happy. It brought tears to my eyes, because it reminds us that even in the midst of loss and pain and hardship and grief and war and memories that either won't leave us alone or won't stay long enough, that God is good. Memories are a hard concept at times, especially with PTSD and cptsd, and some won't leave us alone and we can't forget, and others we want to remember. These verses about God's faithfulness and miracles are what we want to choose to hold on to in the midst of the battle, especially in our minds. Even if we must write them down, record them somehow. Then when you go through another trigger or a flashback or anniversary comes up and you get your bearings, you can look at these. You can keep them close to your heart to remember how well and good God has been in your life. Which leads us to today. Jesus wept. John 11:35, also known as the shortest verse in the Bible. I believe one of the most impactful verses. Honestly, it's right in the middle of the story, and Mary and Martha's brother Lazarus has died, and they are terribly sad, and they are strong believers of Jesus and wanted him to come and save their brother, and he waited. But we will save that moral for a different day, which is equally great and very much relatable to PTSD and cptsd. So it will come up often, and often does in my own home. Oftentimes we think that God and Jesus want to see this perfect dressed up version of us, the one that makes it to church on time, or the one that makes it to the work on time, and is a perfect member of society. When I read it, and I have over and over, I imagine Jesus being overcome with emotion, the sense of empathy, now how Jesus felt and knew what was in your heart, the feeling of their turmoil and loss and despair, and knowing deep loss and what was to come, and how he soon would be facing the facts that others whom didn't or couldn't quite understand the concept that he wasn't actually in fact dying would see him die. physically. Jesus understood the pain of Mary and Martha losing Lazarus. He understood all of his disciples and mother losing him. He even understands all of us taking today to remember the fallen. Heroes among us that have raced into battle when others are running out. Jesus understands pain. Jesus understands loss. Jesus understands turmoil. So on a day like today, I believe that Jesus is weeping with all of us that have loved and lost. All of us that wanted to save but couldn't, living with PTSD and cptsd. We can relate to all of these verses as a collective whole and individually. Oftentimes we can't. We can feel like we're alone, especially when we are triggered or during flashbacks or the moment right after when you catch your bearings. I want you to remember that you're not alone. You don't feel that alone. And most of all, when you weep, you do not weep alone. Jesus weeps with you. I'm going to go work out. And I hope that you also have something that you can go and do. And always remember that God is good all the time.